Hey, how's it going, everybody? And welcome back into another episode on the SFS channel. My name is Gavin, and today we're not actually mock drafting. We are drafting a real team here with real prizes on the line, real players, and all that good stuff. So we've got some stakes today. Today's draft is very important, so I'll be doing my best job to compile the best roster possible and get this team ready for a championship push. So before we get into things, drop down, give today's video a like, and if you're new around here, click that subscribe button. I'm always here to answer your guys' questions. If you've got anything for me, drop that in the comment section down below, and I'll be here to help you however you need throughout the entirety of the fantasy football season. So, without further ado, let's hit the intro and get straight into today's draft. Alrighty, boys, here we go. So we've got ourselves a 10-team half PPR snake draft today. I am drafting from the 1.4 overall selection, and we've got 1.5 minutes on the timer, 17 rounds today, and here you see it. Standard one quarterback league, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, a flex, and then your standard bench spaces. So a very typical video for today, and this is actually very interesting. So I was going to pick Zeke at the 1.4. That's who I was really going for here. I'm going to have to make an adjustment now, but that's fine. I've still got the choice of Derrick Henry and Alvin Kamara, which I have talked about in one of my more popular videos from this summer, has been centered around that topic. So I can break that down one time for you here. Basically, to make a long story short, I prefer Alvin Kamara in PPR formats because of the pass catching volume. I think they both peaked last year, but I think that they're still both very safe plays at this point in time. You know, getting a half point per catch with Alvin Kamara is very valuable when you consider the fact that Derrick's not really going to be catching passes at all for this team, and I think that Kamara is going to still be heavily utilized and might actually see an uptick in his usage rate due to that offense that he's in. So I'm going to go Kamara there at the 1.4, and we'll see what falls to us here, but we should be able to hit the running back group pretty strong here in the first 3 rounds. 5 backs straight off the board here. Again, this is a real fantasy league, so I will be playing with this team for the whole year and trying to bring home that championship, and we'll see what goes on here. But basically, 10 teams, so I should be able to make a very, very deep roster and put together a group I feel really comfortable with here. So one thing I want to make sure I don't do is sleep on the tight end position too much. Darren Waller is a target for me in the 3rd round here with that 3.4 pick. That would be something I would be very, very happy with. 2nd round targets for me, I would love Antonio Gibson. That draft pick would make me insanely happy if I could get him, but that might be a bit much to ask for at the 2.7. We'll see what happens, though. Najee Harris would be another great draft pick there. Otherwise, I might start looking at the wide receiver position, because when we get in that CEH to DeAndre Swift territory, I think there's a lot of risk. J.K. Dobbins is a player I like a lot, but he's not exactly the safest pick in the world because the volume isn't there, but that upside certainly is. So we'll keep our eye on the wide receiver group here. Some names in the 2nd round I would like. Calvin Ridley, he's been having some awesome camp highlights. DK Metcalf probably won't be there, though. Justin Jefferson I wouldn't mind in the 2nd, but again, we really want to go running back, and if Antonio Gibson would fall to me, that would be my best case scenario. Najee Harris again, that other target I'd be looking to go for here. So a half PPR league, I'm not necessarily favoring one position or the other in terms of running backs and wide receivers, but I think that being that we're half a point closer to standard leagues, these receivers are all that more valuable, or excuse me, these running backs are all that more valuable, because getting players at that position that can catch passes for us will really help us set ourselves apart from the group. Now, it's not a full PPR league, so maybe Kamara and Gibson would be extra elite in that scoring format. But when you take a look at the fact that your Austin Eckler, who is more of a primary pass catcher and isn't quite as much of an added threat solely based off of his ground rushing value, that devalues him a little bit. I think increases the role that your Harris's, your Gibsons, heck, even Joe Mixon, who has a lot of risk associated with him, can bring to the table, because at the end of the day, they're still getting goal line carries, while Austin Eckler might have some more competition in that area of the field. So 7 picks. Tell my spot here. Antonio Gibson currently lines up as the 6th best running back off the board. So if we were to see a straight RB run go here, that would be bad news for me, and we're probably looking to take a wide receiver. So I'm hoping that my boys here on the back end of the draft board, they've been watching the channel. That's how we got connected through the SFS community Discord. You need to go check that out if you haven't done so already. There's a free link in the description of today or any video you watch on the channel. You go click that up. It'll send you to my website, or you can click the Discord icon. That is an embedded invite link that will bring you to that server. We join up leagues in there, and basically people, when they've got openings in leagues, either free or paid, they'll just drop that in there, let you know that there's an opportunity for you. So I hopped in some leagues here this season, and I've got some other drafts I'll be doing with members of that community Discord. So a fun way for me to get involved on the channel this summer here. And then also the draft guide collection for the 2021 season is also available right now. That's obviously all that research I've done and put in this season. Dang it, Antonio Gibson goes off the board there. That sucks. Probably a good choice by him there. Him and Diggs should be a nice combination, but now I'm really crossing my fingers that I can get a Najee Harris, but I'm not feeling too great that that's going to be the case scenario for me here. I'm not all wrapped up in an Austin Eckler either. I would pick him, I think, if Mixon and Harris are both gone. I guess I don't even have to worry about Austin Eckler now because he's off the table. So all my picks are just flying off the board right now. It's looking more and more like Calvin Ridley might be my draft choice here. I'm thinking that he's probably going to be my best player available. Maybe D-Hop's still there, but I really like the prospect of having Ridley on the team. We'll see, though. Tyreek Hill, I mean, there's a chance that these next two picks could both be running back, so I might have a very good wide receiver fall into my lap, and it's not necessarily the draft choice or the draft strategy I want to approach here, but I think that, oh, come on, man. So unfortunate. I think that's just kind of the way that things are looking like they're going to trend today. For those of you wondering, Tyreek Hill is my wide receiver 3 behind Diggs and Adams this season. Hopkins is my 4, and Calvin Ridley is my 5. So by no means am I going to complain if I get Tyreek Hill here at the 2-7, but I much rather would have filled out that running back group. This is a situation where it's too good to pass on that value, and I'll actually be kind of bummed here if he takes Tyreek Hill. It seems like things haven't been going my way, because if the value doesn't fall there, then I'm really, and yep, there he goes. So literally all the players that I just said I wanted are no longer on the table. This is fantastic. Great situation to be in here. I'll be even more disappointed if our man Darren Waller is not chilling right there for me at the 3-4. So I gotta play this. Do I think Darren Waller would still be there? This is the 17th overall pick. It's too early and should not be considered right now as my draft choice in a 10-team league. Maybe, just maybe, if we're talking a full throttle 12-team league, that would be something to consider. Hopkins, Metcalf, Ridley, a lot to take into consideration here. I feel like I can't go wrong with DeAndre Hopkins here, but at the same time, I kind of want to throw a dartboard. I went back and forth with Hopkins and Ridley as my wide receiver 4 for this fantasy season. This is a tough choice. I'm trying to think of my other leagues who I've invested into. I want to diversify my investments at this point. Metcalf, again, is another strong pick, but I think I'm going to go out here. 10 seconds. Tick-tock, tick-tock. We're gonna take a chance here. We're gonna go Calvin Ridley. See what happens. I think that at the end of the day, Calvin Ridley has the higher upside of the two, but I think that DeAndre Hopkins has the higher floor. That's basically what I was trying to debate here, and my strategy will ultimately succeed, and I'll feel very good about it if I'm able to get Waller to pair and make that my first 3 picks. But I don't know. I think that all 3 of those receivers have such good upside, but I think Ridley's is the highest. No more Julio Jones. He showed us he get the job done last season. If you saw the work he did at the joint practice with the Dolphins against Byron Jones and Xavier Howard, man, we are just getting sniped out here today. So it's a bit of an early pick for Darren Waller, but he is on the bend, so he basically had to make a choice as to whether or not Jay Kovacs there at the 2-10 and 3-1 was going to pick Waller. If he thought he was, then it's the right choice because you're not going to get that value to fall to you. I would not be mad about Joe Mixon or JK in the third round. I think that is fair value for them in 10-team leagues. I do have my concerns about both of them, which is why I did not take a running back there. Otherwise, I would not pass. I mean, if there's an elite receiver upside play, I might have to go that route. Man, getting CMC with Metcalf and Hopkins is pretty gnarly. It would have been just as lethal had he gotten Ridley and Hopkins, Ridley and Metcalf, whatever receiver I took. There wasn't a good end result for me. Man. All right, please give me J.K. Dobbins. I would feel much better. I feel like this is the story of today's draft, and we're not even drafting live, so they're not watching me talk. They just seem to know the picks I want to make, and they're just flying off the board here. So I'd be really bummed, and it'd be like the 7th straight player I wanted if JK doesn't fall here. I just think that I need some more upside for this lineup. I think Kamara gives us a pretty dang good floor, but I don't think the ceiling is nearly what it was a season ago. So I think that JK is going to be the choice here. I'm just going to glance over the position groups real quick with those first 3 tight ends. It seems like that position is no longer in consideration. Kyle Pitts, Mark Andrews, TJ Hawkinson, guys I like to wait on towards the late 5th, 6th round in these 10-team leagues. Wide receivers, I'm not so keen on A.J. Brown. I think that I've already got myself an incredible upside play. Justin Jefferson's awesome, but I don't think that he's going to give me really too much of a positional advantage, whereas I can be snatching up some of these middle ground receivers that give me some great upside later on. I'd be kicking myself if I passed on running back too much longer here. So David Montgomery and Chris Carson are still right in that sweet spot, but I want the upside of J.K. Dobbins with this pick here. This is the 2nd time I've invested into Dobbins in a money league. I think that, there are your fair gripes with him in terms of volume and overall usage in that Ravens offense. He's going to lose goal line carries to Gus Edwards here and there. But at the end of the day, he still doesn't have, Gus that is, does not have the upside JK does. J.K. Dobbins is such an electrifying runner that he is just going to make things work with what he's given. He's so efficient, and him and Kamara were 2 of the most efficient running backs on a per-touch basis last season. As long as he stays healthy, he's going to see his red zone numbers. He's going to get involved in that game, and he's going to see a lot of yardage output and production, even if he's getting fewer than 20 touches per game, which, to note, Alvin Kamara also did not crack the 20 touch per game barrier last season. So it's definitely possible to be a top-end fantasy running back, even if that's not factored into your situation. So I'm going to start game planning here for my next draft pick. I would absolutely love to find myself another upside piece. If Allen Robinson were to fall, which is probably very unlikely, all of these names, and that's a bit of an unrealistic expectation. Whereas I think there is actually a genuine chance that Harris, Gibson, Eckler could have potentially fallen to me. Waller, that's not how things played out. I see no way that Allen Robinson falls all the way back to me on the board with so many picks to go. I should be looking more at the heart of the round 4 receivers. CeeDee Lamb, this is a name that might actually have some realistic potential here to fall. Although the running back group is pretty dried up, and I think that we'll stop drafting them so heavily pretty quick here, there's a chance. Never say there's not a chance here. Again, this is a half PPR league, so I'm not weighting wide receivers more heavily than I usually would have had it been full PPR. I think that the running back is the clear priority in these type of leagues because, again, as the closer and closer you get to standard formats, the more those running backs are going to give you bang for your buck because receivers aren't giving you freebie points with those receptions. So you are getting half a point per reception, but at the end of the day, it doesn't make as drastic of a difference as it would have had this been a full PPR league. So since I'm a little bit behind where I'd like to be at the running back spot, I do want to target a round 5 tight end. I would love to bring in a TJ Hawkinson, who's actually questionable at the moment, so let's check on that. Okay, so he's questionable but healthy. That doesn't make any sense to me. Mark Andrews was actually ambulanced off the field with you see severe leg cramps, so that's actually something to take into consideration. Hopefully there's not any muscle tears or anything bad under the radar happening, so that's something to keep your eye out for if you are a Mark Andrews owner. I've got him in my big dynasty league. There goes CeeDee Lamb. That's surprising that CeeDee would go before A-Rob. That is very, very unusual to me. I would say that Allen Robinson is by far the safer pick. And maybe CeeDee's got a higher upside, but all the reports we're getting out of Cowboys camp about that Dak Prescott shoulder injury, it's literally turning into a nightmare every time. It's like the timetable just gets pushed backwards and backwards and backwards. They were saying day to day. Now they were like it's week to week. And then they come out and say, we think he'll be ready for week 1. And then Schefter just reported, I saw this morning, that he might see lingering effects into the season. So, all right, I got to get into the zone here, make my draft pick. See, I don't think Josh Jacobs gives me the upside I'm looking for at this particular spot on the board. There are some nice bonuses in this league, which makes me entertain the idea of Kyler Murray, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson for passing yards. I think you can get up to like 7 additional points in this league if you are to have 400 yards passing. So some nice incentivization there for big passing performances. Pat Mahomes just won at the 4.6, so something to keep note on. Yeah, I'm not loving Miles Sanders, Josh Jacobs. It's too early for ETN. Mike Evans would not be my first choice here, but I think it might be where I have to go. I would much rather have a Robert Woods type player or Tyler Lockett down here on the board. There's other names I like, but at this spot, Julio Jones, Chris Godwin, Amari Cooper does have some really nice upside, but again, with that Dak Prescott injury, it's kind of tough to say what exactly he's going to look like there. So I would like to know more about Dak before I boldly invest into his wide receiver group. So Mike Evans, we're going to do it. There's a time and place. I say this all the time for each draft pick here. Picked him basically right on the head at his ADP. That'll hopefully be the only time I invest into Mike Evans this offseason, but at this point, it was too early for any of the other players. I strongly considered Kyler Murray. He's my quarterback too, but we'll see what happens here at the 5-4. I was also checking out Robert Woods, but it was too early for him as well. So we're seeing an interesting dynamic to this draft board today. A lot of value has been soaked up very early and often. Makes you almost wish you had those back-to-back picks on the bench so you could get your top 2 players on the board at that spot and then just not really have to worry about it at that point. I'd love to take Kyler Murray here with my next pick. At this spot, I'd be totally down with going Amari Cooper, who I've got as a fringe wide receiver 1 for this season. I went back and forth with him and CeeDee Lamb, though. Again, I didn't want to pick them that early because of the quarterback concerns. We know they're not the same if you've got Garrett Gilbert throwing them the ball. So if Dak is not healthy, it significantly lowers my confidence in that overall offense. So I just want to make sure I'm covering my bases here and making a smart pick. Miles Sanders has been splitting touches evenly. That's also why I didn't make that draft selection with Boston Scott at practice. That offense is a disaster. That team should be pretty bad, which is going to result in less rushing attempts. Josh Jacobs does not have all that much upside. This offensive line got completely revamped, and I wouldn't say that in a good way. It was more so the type of deal where they had no cap space, so they had to cut the whole slate clean and basically start over fresh there. Doesn't catch passes, doesn't make explosive runs. He's got Kenyon Drake now, which is significant infringement upon his workload. It's not like he's going to cut his numbers in half or anything, but I wouldn't be shocked to see 3 or 4 touches less per game, which will add up over the course of a season. So that's something to keep note of, and especially those goal line touches will be incredibly valuable to make sure we're getting there as well. Murray is off the board, so that's a spot where I think I could go Lamar Jackson here, but I would not say it's a must make draft pick here. And he's not a must draft player at this point, but it does look like he might be one of my best options on the table. I'm also looking at, so there goes Cooper. Tyler Lockett would be a player I'd love to snatch up here. Robert Woods is another very quality piece as well I would love to see in the lineup. This is only a 1 quarterback league, so what I could do, since Tyler Lockett is kind of my guy here, I could go out and pick him up and then try and stack him with Russell Wilson in a round or so here, see how that works out. I also could go out, it seems a little bit early. Yeah, I don't love the idea of reaching up 10, 11 spots on the board when we've got players still ranked, in the 35th overall position based off ADP. All other players I hate. And I try not to read too much into ADP, but it is worth noting that those players might not give you the best value on the back end. So I think it's down to me between Robert Woods. See, I love Julio, but I genuinely am not confident that I'm going to get the amount of games out of him that I would like to see. And also here, I'm going to talk myself into picking Lamar Jackson because although his receivers are dinged up and injured, I do like the idea of having JK and Lamar Jackson. That offense is the #1 rushing threat in the National Football League collectively. So I think that having both of those two players, it might make me a little bit Ravens dependent here. But I think at the end of the day, you give the rushing upside back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. Lamar Jackson averages the most fantasy points per game over the last 2 years combined. That's pretty impressive, and he's got more options to work with. So hopefully nothing's too significant with Andrews. His first-round pick, Rashad Bateman, is recovering from injury, but I think that he ultimately will come back healthy. He's expected to be back in early September, so maybe it's not quite week 1. But Hollywood Brown was dinged up as well. Hopefully he can make a strong return to the lineup, be okay there. It's looking like we're going to go a little bit running back light here, so I'm going to make sure I can try and capitalize on some of those names later on in the board. I'm talking about Trey Sermon, Michael Carter. We'll take a peek at some other rookie running backs and see if we can fill out some depth there. Obviously, it's going to be important for me to probably address some sort of a handcuff situation here. Through the first 5 rounds, I don't hate my team. I would definitely not say that, but it isn't my favorite. So it's definitely a situation where things haven't played out perfectly for me based off of the strategy I like to draft with and whatnot. But I think that I still feel, I'd say my least favorite pick to this point is probably Mike Evans. Knowing how the rest of the board falls in hindsight, I probably would have rather picked Kyler Murray there at that 4-7 spot and then see what happened in the 5th round, maybe taking Robert Woods. But at the end of the day, Evans still has a lot of upside. I just find him a bit touchdown dependent, which is why I don't love him that much. He barely cracked 1,000 yards last season. He was injured a little bit, but being that he's my wide receiver 2 on this team, then I don't exactly hate the situation because I am very confident in what Calvin Ridley can bring to this group. So I would love Tyler Lockett falling down to me. There goes Julio Jones. I see him and A.J. Brown being very boom-bust players this season. I've talked about them. Myles Gaskin, not a player I like at all as he goes off the board there. That's going to be a committee system. If you saw that preseason game, the first team reps with Tua, Malcolm Brown was out snapping him. So for a player who I also think will get vultured in the red zone and see less opportunities down there because Malcolm Brown's on this team, that's just something I'm staying completely away from here. I don't know if I'll get Tyler Lockett. He might not make it to me back on the board. I also said I wanted to address that tight end position, but it was too early for me to do so in that 5th round. So I've got interesting situations. I'm no longer considering Russell Wilson now that I've taken Lamar Jackson. There goes Mark Andrews off the board, so I assume Hawkinson will go probably within the next 5 picks. Probably won't make it to me. That's all right. If I can get my hands on Tyler Lockett, I'd feel very good about that. Josh Jacobs fell very late there, but in a half PPR league, I think you got to pick him in standard at this point. He barely averaged over 2 catches per game last season or 2 targets per game last year, so not exactly the volume you're looking for there. And that just kind of shows you, too, with Miles Sanders going after Mike Davis, what the SFS community thinks of him as a whole. I think as a player, Miles Sanders is one of the most talented backs in the league, and he has a great skill set, but that Eagles offense is going to be so toxic for a fantasy running back. You're just not going to want to deal with it. He can rip off a 70-yard run just like that, but, I mean, we saw him do it last year. But if Philly's trailing by 15, 20 points in some games, he's going to be a forgotten piece. He's not an elite receiving threat. He's not exactly the most aware player in terms of having the best hands, having the best field awareness. He did make a really impressive catch as a rookie in the back corner of the end zone from Carson Wentz, but other than that, last season when they tried to check it down to him in the flats, he just kind of looked a little bit lost, and it wasn't a great situation. So I do like how that team at the 1-7 has loaded up at the running back spot. They're not necessarily my favorite backs. Just kind of scanning the board here. I do think my favorite team right now is the 1-1 with CMC, Metcalf, Hopkins, Murray. Travis Etienne's a bit of a risky RB2, but the rest of the floor and ceiling collective value on that team is ridiculous. So as much as I love me some Tyler Lockett, I think what I might do here, if he falls, there's still a chance he gets picked, is if Hawk is there, I'm going to go TJ Hawkinson with this pick, try and set myself ahead and give myself an advantage at another position. And then I'm going to look in the 7th round to try and come back Ayuk would be a player I would love to have as my wide receiver 3. I think he's going to be a very, very good player this season. Michael Thomas is awesome, but, well, we'll see. There's still some drama there with that team. They reportedly kind of put their demons to bed, but we don't know where we're getting him. So, okay, of course. Brandon Ayuk goes off the board. So, maybe now, so that strategy just all of a sudden has to pivot once again. I am totally fine picking TJ Hawkinson here. I think that's the pick I want to make because I think that addressing and getting a top 6 tight end gives me a better advantage than drafting Tyler Lockett does right here. I just want to try and figure out what that means for my next selection then. It's still a little early to be reaching up there for a Trey Sermon. Michael Carter might be in the play here. Zach Moss is another potential player I go after. We're going to pick Hawk here and just kind of see how the board falls. Again, it's more important for me at this point to, A, the value is right there, and B, I needed to set myself ahead at a different spot because I'm feeling like I need to gain an extra advantage here, given the fact that I would have liked to have taken a Gibson, a Harris, and given myself a second elite running back option. The RBs at this spot are no longer that, so I'm just trying to make sure the rest of the lineup is very, very strong here as we move into the middle part of the draft. So it would be a miracle, and I would be incredibly happy if Tyler Lockett was still there for me at the 7-4. I don't think that's going to happen, though. 4 or 5 draft picks have to go off the board here, and he's currently the top player, so that'd be a very unusual situation. Chase Edmonds is an option. I don't absolutely feel like I would need to take Raheem Mostert here, but again, a possibility. So there goes Lockett. I'd say I like the prospective idea of Chase Edmonds, like I just touched on. You never know. I could go out here and Michael Thomas isn't going to play for me right away, though, so I'd hate to invest in a guy who's injured right off the bat. How about Jamar Chase's drops in this preseason game? Dang, three targets, 3 drops. That was an ugly performance and showing from him. That wasn't very encouraging to see. I do really like the idea of Chase Claypool, although he is also dinged up. I think he's got an ankle sprain right now. So there goes Chase Edmonds. Man, we're out in Sniperville today. See, drafting Michael Thomas as my wide receiver 3 here could give me a lot of upside later on in the season, but I think that with some relative uncertainty about what exactly would be in play for him, it's not something I love. And again, I could draft Raheem Mostert here. That's another name I'm considering now that Edmonds is off the board. But I do think that at some point his value comes to an end for that team. So here we go. A minute on the clock. We'll see what are we working with here. James Robinson, no thank you. Melvin Gordon, no thank you. I don't think those players have long-term starting roles for their teams. Rojo's an option. Raheem Mostert is a very good upside play at running back. I think as long as he's healthy, he's certainly got some stranglehold of the offensive work on that team, but health has been a big issue for him. I do need a third running back, though. I don't want to be too thin at that position and really feel like I have to overcompensate, and with all the receivers that are on the board here, I might actually do something a little bit unorthodox, and I think I'm actually going to do it. All right, we're taking a big swing here. I'm going to go Michael Carter and get myself a third starting running back for a team. That's the key here. I want to make sure I have a player who has protected value in his offense. The running back group for me was too thin. I think that had I addressed my needs earlier, I could have felt the need to not make that draft pick. But the more and more I looked at the board, Michael Carter was my guy. ADP shows it's an early draft pick there, but I've got him ranked just behind Trey Sermon. I think that Carter has a safer floor because we know he's going to be utilized earlier. He's not in as good of an offense as Trey Sermon is, but he still has the qualities and the intangibles you like to see out of a running back. Young, fresh legs, obviously being a rookie, can catch the football, elusive out in space. the Jets are going to have to pass the ball a lot. And on passing downs, he's the back I expect to be out there. Zach Moss, another back I really like, just went off the table there. I think he's an underrated stud for the Bills this season. There's a potential that he catches a lot of balls for that team and ends up coming out and increasing his goal line carries in touchdown versatility or utility, I should say, because I think that they're going to want to run Josh Allen less on the goal line there and keep him a little bit cleaner and fresher. So ultimately, I think that played out how it should have went there. I think that James Robinson and Raheem Mostert carry more significant risk than these two players do. And I think that at the end of the day, all these players have very similar upside. Melvin Gordon is certainly not guaranteed anything long-term in that offense. Damian Harris's ceiling is about as low as a crawl space in a children's room. I don't know where I was going with that, but there goes MT. The point being there is that Damian Harris is basically a standard-only play, and he does not catch passes, do anything too fantastic. How about Ramondre Stevenson? Yeah, he's going to be a late-round pick, but someone I'm keeping my eye on here. Here he is, way down at the 192 pick. I'll probably take him earlier than that if he's still on the table. But, man, he's been looking nice in the preseason. I know that Pats offense runs a heavy committee system. That's another reason I don't like Damian Harris, because on passing downs, he's coming out of the game and not being used in that phase of things. But holy cow, I mean, he's explosive. He's more explosive than I thought he was. I had my eye on him heading into the draft day. But, man, I mean, a 90-some yard run, or was it, I think it was 90-some yards. And then he had a couple touchdowns in that first game, and then he had another touchdown in that second game. He's been looking very, very impressive. So I'm feeling much better about this group now that I got Michael Carter. I think it was very important, although it is only half PPR. I just think that his ceiling, and he's not going to have to start week one. Obviously, the receiver group is much stronger with this team, so that's where I'm going to be looking to go early on. But he could. In weaker matchups, let's see who the Jets got week one. Carolina. Not a must start, but not a must sit either, so it's an option there for week one. He is currently listed as a team starter, though, so, yeah. I'm a big fan of Michael Carter here. Trey Sermon, probably, as I touched on earlier, he is my higher-rated player on the draft guide, on my big board rankings. The reasoning for that is I think he has a higher ceiling, and I think that he can find himself work in this offense, even if he isn't the starter. So while we wait for him, or wait for Mostert to go down, rather, there's a very good potential and chance that I see for Trey Sermon to just get on the field, make big plays, score touchdowns. Michael Carter is going to be the most heavily featured back in this offense regardless, because he is already the starter heading into week one. But I think that the overall upside and expectation can be a little bit higher for Trey Sermon. So had he been available there, I probably would have made him as my draft choice. Still a lot of receivers I love. I'm going to peek at the running back group one more time. I would not mind taking, so there goes Raheem Mostert there. I wouldn't mind a Rojo. Damian Harris wouldn't be a terrible option as an RB4, but I'd rather focus on upside right now, considering the fact that I think that floor was touched on early on. The Hawkinson pick, the Lamar Jackson pick, Alvin Kamara, Calvin Ridley all gave me significant floor value, I think, for this team. While also some of those guys give me a really nice ceiling as well, but I think that right now it's just important here in the middle to late rounds of the draft that we're looking to increase the overall upside of this team. I gotta make picks that are league winners at this point. That's essentially what I'm going for here. I've established the framework of this team. Now I'm trying to build around the players I've already taken and put the pieces together that will ultimately, hopefully, give me a chance to make a playoff run and then ultimately towards that league championship. Let's check the board here. Let's check out what teams I think are doing well in today's mock. Or this isn't a mock again. This is a real league. See, no one has, because we all went so RB heavy early on, no one really has a group that I'm terrified of. I think that Jones and Taylor on the back end was very good. Darrell Henderson, that might be the best three-man lineup that anyone has here. But I think that my top two running back group can go punch for punch with anyone else's. CMC is obviously the clear-cut number one best back, but then Travis Etienne or Chase Edmonds as your number two, I'm not so sure that that's amazing. Eckler and Barkley could be amazing if Saquon can hit his ceiling. DeAndre Swift has significant injury problems, but that could be amazing if he ultimately can live up to his potential, stay healthy on the field. Montgomery and Gibson's awesome, but we'll see. Not too afraid of Nick Chubb, Myles Gaskins, and Josh Jacobs there. Zeke is a pick I wanted to make here, but CEH, not a player I like too much. And then Mixon and Cook is pretty formidable as well. So no one really got an overly great positional advantage at the running back group, which makes me feel good because that's kind of the thing I've been feeling a little bit icky about through this draft, as I would have liked to have more early running back depth. So the fact that I was able to take advantage of Lamar Jackson, who could very well be a top 3 fantasy quarterback this season with that elite running game he has, in addition to the passing offense that he has that will hopefully take a step forward this season. Calvin Ridley, Mike Evans obviously have wide receiver 1 potential. I think Calvin Ridley should be a top-end wide receiver 1. Mike Evans, a fringe wide receiver 1 that can give me some value at that point on the board. Man, Kenny Golladay has been really hated on in this mock draft. I keep saying mock draft because I typically post mock drafts, but today is a real league, so I need to quit saying that. Get that habit out of my head. He's dealing with a hamstring issue, though, right? He's slated to sit Sunday. Man, and Daniel Jones, you just don't feel great about starting a wide receiver that's being thrown the ball by Daniel Jones. Like, I was genuinely considering taking Robbie Anderson over Kenny Golladay. I have Kenny Golladay ahead of him in my rankings, obviously, but man, not something I love. I got to make the pick here. I would love to look at the running backs one more time, but I did not want to get auto-drafted. And I was probably going to be auto-drafted Kenny Golladay anyways because he was the top player on the board for ADP, but that's not a pick I feel fantastic about. It was really good value, but the reason he fell so far is because he could be a dud. Kenny G has wide receiver 1 potential. He is a clear-cut alpha in a given offense. Had injuries a lot last season. That was a big issue for him. He's already dealing with a hamstring this season, which I don't love. But it was too much put together for me to pass on him there. That just wouldn't have been a wise choice for me. I mean, I really like the idea of Devontae Smith or Robbie Anderson, who went shortly after him. OBJ, same kind of situation as Kenny Golladay. There's just a lot of risk involved. The ceiling is really high, but not something that's a surefire thing at all. That's mainly the reasoning why that pick wasn't made lightning quick. Devontae Smith would be an awesome next pick for me. I love Curtis Samuel's upside as well. We'll see if those guys are available. Devontae Smith had some drops the other night as well. So, again, something that's a little bit discouraging to see. James Robinson's fallen pretty far here, too. That'd be an interesting situation to assess. I just worry too much about that Jags offense with ETN out there and what Urban Meyer's got drawn up for that team. Melvin Gordon, I will absolutely not be drafting because as soon as Javonte Williams takes over that offense, he becomes basically a valueless fantasy piece. I could invest in Rojo. He would be my top running back threat on the table right now. Not a player I absolutely am attached to or love by any means, but it wouldn't be terrible to just address depth here. I suppose I could take James Robinson and play. You see, yeah, I expect that James Robinson would be the starter, but he doesn't have a very high ceiling. ETN is going to be nosing around with his touch count. I do not feel the urge or the pressing need to draft him at all at this spot. But looking at the rest of the value on the table, it's not like wide receiver is running out anytime soon. There's a ton of names I still like there on the board. I've addressed my tight end that I'd like already at this spot. I'd say it's between him and Rojo, and I think that James Robinson is the slightly better pick here. This is probably a pick that, for my league mates watching this video right now, I'll probably try and flip him if he does well for the first couple weeks of the season. I just don't think I can pass on him any longer. He is my running back 4, so he's not going to be a player that I have to start, which makes me feel good. Even though he did so well last season, I'm still just trying to address that depth and get myself players that can eventually become useful to me in some way. Again, not a starting level piece, a 10-team league. I only got to start 2 running backs and 1 flex. So having trade assets, having players who, if something happens to Travis Etienne, then you feel great about James Robinson, because we saw how terrible the Jags were last year and how productive he was able to be in that situation. I'm just trying to make picks here that'll give us a shot down the road. And I would not feel terrible if something were to happen to J.K. Dobbins, Michael Carter. Subbing in James Robinson as your RB2 in a couple solid matchups is not something that I would hate either. So I'm feeling very nice about the starting lineup. We're just trying to get bench players at this point that will make me feel as if I need them to start, they can get the job done. So we're just trying to find players that could be starters for us at really any given position. We don't position fill here, obviously, on the channel. Not something I'm a supporter of. If you just draft your fantasy teams by going straight down the board, I think that's a dangerous game to play, and you're limiting your potential success that season. But, wide receiver is the clear value position late in the draft. If we just take a peek here, we've got Corey Davis, Darnell Mooney, Elijah Moore's down here, Marvin Jones, Nelson Aguilar, Russell Gage, Rashad Bateman, Amon-Ra St. Brown, all roster-worthy players. Curtis Samuel is another high upside player I would like to take advantage of and snatch up for my team. I did talk earlier about wanting Gus Edwards as a handcuff option. That's coming up pretty shortly here if I want to make that choice. The 116 pick, so within the next 3 rounds or so, it'll probably be time to draft Gus if I feel it's the right value on the table at the time. I don't lock into players or picks. Every time I'm up on the board, I try and assess the situation, take a look at my team, figure out what do I really need here, what's going to give me the best chance to not only be, I'm not looking to make a safe pick per se, but I want to make the pick that gives me a really nice balance of ceiling and floor. Obviously, players are awesome that can go out and score you 20, 25 points, but then the next week if they score you 4, what real value does that have to your lineup in the long term? Because you're going to get burned, and if that happens in a big-time game, that's really going to suck for your team. So finding that balance is very, very important. Debo goes off the board there. I'm a big Debo Samuel fan, but not in fantasy football this season. I think Ayuk is the clear better option, and obviously rewinding back to that 6-7 draft choice I made of Hawkinson, I was hoping that I could actually get Ayuk in the 7th, but then he goes, 9 picks prior at the 6-6, right before my draft selection. So I've missed out on a handful of players that I really wanted in today's video, but at the end of the day, we should be just fine. I think that the receiver depth that we're getting here late will give us some really quality flex options or substitute players. And having 4 starter running backs on their teams, Alvin Kamara, J.K. Dobbins, Michael Carter, and James Robinson are all the starting backs. So that at least gives me the potential, if I only want to start 2 running backs on a given week, I have the firepower to fill that spot in my lineup. It's going to be very dependent on having at least J.K. Dobbins or at least Alvin Kamara healthy and readily available for my team every week. But if they are, there's no reason that this team shouldn't get the job done. The floor is very, very solid. It's a very quality fantasy floor for this for this roster. It's just a matter of now I got to find ceiling pieces that I can either choose to stream in my flex spot or at my wide receiver 2 position that I think will give me the chance to win this league inevitably. So, obviously that's the goal here for the 10 teams drafting today. Samuel, I'd be extremely happy. I've got 2 picks left to go off the board, but if Curtis Samuel fell to me, the upside he's got with Fitzmagic is very, very exciting. Fournette's still available as starting running back, another player that could be useful or valuable to this team. You can see he's the starter over Ronald Jones. I do prefer Ronald Jones. I have them ranked right next to each other on my draft guide, but I do have Rojo 1 slot ahead of him because I think his overall upside is better. So now the question begs, do I go Fournette? Where do I go Curtis Samuel? I'm leaning towards going Curtis Samuel because I think that having 4 running backs is already plenty, and I'm not in love with Mike Evans or Kenny Golladay. So I would like some sort of escape plan, whereas I feel really solid about my first 3 RBs I've taken. James Robinson, very quality as a 4th back. I would rather add depth at wide receiver. So no point in taking a second tight end or quarterback. That'd be a waste of a round here. I suppose not a big issue, but something to take into consideration is I already have one Buccaneer and I already have 2 Ravens, so I'd essentially be having 2 players from 2 different teams, which in a sense isn't the worst thing in the world. It's certainly not an advantage. I would say you can stack quarterbacks, wide receivers. I had a league last year where a guy had Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Jones, and Devontae Adams somehow all on his team. Actually won the league, but it is sometimes acceptable to stack offenses. It is kind of a dicey gamble, though, because in the week where the Packers played the Buccaneers and got mopped off the floor in like week 7 last year, I mean, obviously his fantasy team got stomped because half his lineup was on the same team. They produced not so hot, therefore bad fantasy output. So you're kind of rolling the dice a little bit. It can be really good. Obviously, if you had Allen and Diggs last year, quarterback, wide receiver stacks are a lot more common. But I would say having a wide receiver and a running back can be kind of counterproductive. Yes, they're going to run or pass on any given play. So technically, you'll be involved with every draft choice. But that doesn't mean that that offense is going to have a good game. Even if they're running and passing, the Buccaneers in particular, there's 5 other names on the board they could be throwing the ball to, and 3 other running backs, Ronald Jones. You've got yourself, Giovanni Bernard back there, Keyshawn Vaughn still in town. It's a very loaded offense, not to mention, aside from the wide receiver position, you've also got a slew of tight ends that can catch balls. Maybe if you're looking to invest majorly into one given offense, Tampa isn't exactly a must team to do that because there's so many options. Now, Fournette did fall to me in the 11th round here. That is a pick I would really like, but like this is the spot where I was expecting to take Gus Edwards or within the next round or 2 here. But clearly Leonard Fournette's a better option if he's available. Another name that's kind of been skimmed out of his offense is David Johnson. You see, usage suggests third down back. That's not good enough. We don't want to see David Johnson the third down back. We want to see David Johnson the first, second, and third down back like we did last year. That's not going to happen. His touchdowns pulled the wagon last season. It's a very shaky situation there. Something I really like about Jake Kovac's team. Oh, actually, never mind. He did take 2 quarterbacks already. I was going to say I like that he waited so late for his quarterback. Everyone else has only taken 1 QB to this point, which I think suits their lineup well. Another thing I could do here if Leonard Fournette falls is I could try and package him and see why are we picking Alex Madison before Leonard Fournette? Like, did some crazy scandal come out about... Yeah, see, I'm like, what is this report we've got on him? Yeah, this was auto draft, right? Or did he make that pick? I don't know why Alex Max, he has Cook, doesn't he? Nope. 1-2 has Dalvin Cook. That's a very interesting pick that you would go Alex Madison, even over a James Conner, David Johnson. I think Lenny gives you a chance to be a productive player. And that's why I'm ultimately going to make this pick here is the fact that he is a starting running back for an NFL team. So as much as I just talked about the Buccaneers having a slew of offensive pieces, he will find his value in his work on the goal line. And he doesn't have to be an amazing player. He's clearly better in the postseason for whatever reason. But these are more of trade assets, bench pieces to add depth at the running back group, which can dry up pretty quick if you've got injuries. So it's nice to at least have options at that position, but the clear need for me down the stretch of this draft here is to address the wide receiver spot because I think that is definitely the thinnest spot on my team. I love Calvin Ridley as my wide receiver 1. Mike Evans is a guy I'm not too excited about. It's not a bad pick, not something I hate. Kenny Golladay has a lot of upside for where I drafted him at, but we're talking some risk with those 2 players as well, so make sure we're covering our bases here. It would be interesting to see if I could get a Russell Gage to fall to me. I would have 2 Falcons receivers then, but 2 players I think have incredible upside in a very high passing volume offense. Elijah Moore is another receiver I'd love to take. He looks like he's questionable what he's dealing with. Out at least a week with a quadricep. It's interesting. He should be fine. Just a week isn't that bad. That's what's nice about Sleeper here. As you're drafting, you can see a player's health designations. so you can just quickly peek over, see what's up with them, and then move on with your day. Usually you're going to hear about it. Like, I've got sleeper notifications, Schefter, Rappaport, all their Twitter notifications turned on. So if something does happen, I'm getting an alert, a text message from them, or not necessarily a text, but a notification alert. And I usually hear about it within the first 5 minutes because I've constantly got my phone by me. But those are the people to follow for NFL news. Sleeper will repost their tweets through their app. And then if you just turn on notifications on Twitter, you'll just get a pop-up every time Schefter or Rappaport tweets. And it's 95% of the time during training camp about injury-related stuff. In the offseason, it's nice because he tweets out all the free agent signings, draft picks, on draft day and whatnot. So it's a good resource if you're looking for some stuff to do in the football community. Man, so I've got 5 starting running backs on my team right now. Maybe not fantasy starters per se, but I would say 3 of them have very good upside. Robinson and Fournette are definitely bench pieces and are depth plays here. But it's depth that I think I desperately needed considering the risk that I would have if I lose these 2 players and did not have requisite help at that spot. So, let's see here. Elijah Moore would be a nice pick to fall to me. It's a really good upside play, especially for a rookie. It's like I'm getting a pair from like every team here. I've got a pair of Buccaneers, a pair of Ravens. I would be getting a pair of Jets if I made that draft choice. Marvin Jones is another sleeper receiver I like here. I just talked about Russell Gage. There's a lot of promising pieces still on the board here. And I do still have to draft a defense and kicker, but I'm planning on waiting for the last couple rounds to even as much as entertain that situation. This draft is taking a little bit longer because we are using a 1.5 minute timers right now, but it should work out just fine. Hopefully this episode will be under an hour long. If it's not, feel free to skip around, ask questions as you go once again. Going back to the top of the board, I definitely don't regret the pick of Calvin Ridley because I think that Joe Mixon and J.K. Dobbins, if I had that as a trio to start my draft off, I would have liked that a lot less than I like my current first 3 draft picks. But again, where I would have went differently is I probably would have taken Kyler Murray at that 4-7. That is the one regret I have from today's draft. I think I played everything else. I played my hand very well. I feel like this team has still turned out very solid. I've got a lot of depth at positions of need. But I would have loved to have Murray come back, take Robert Woods in the 5th round. Mike Evans on paper is a better receiver based off of pure number value than Robert Woods is. But I think that having such an elite ceiling play in Calvin Ridley, I would rather have a safe floor to pair with him instead of a high ceiling player and a boom bust player, if that makes any sense. So it looks like I got my wish here. David Johnson's still on the board, but I did not like what I've seen from him so far this offseason. We're going receiver. I think Elijah Moore will be my pick here. I don't want to take my I don't want to stack my Falcons receivers just yet. I will if he comes back to me in the 13th round there, but Elijah Moore is a player I am very invested into this season. Marvin Jones is a great pick there in the 12-5 by Big Kittle Liar. It's a nice little team name he's got going on there. He showed out in that first preseason game with the reps he had with Trevor Lawrence. I think that's a pick that's going to go very unnoticed in a lot of leagues and will be a big-time difference maker for a lot of teams this season. So I'm looking at for my next pick here, Russell Gage. Obviously another Falcons wideout, but I expect a high dosage of volume for him with Julio Jones having his targets needed to be absorbed through Kyle Pitts and Russell Gage. Russell Gage had a very nice target share last year as well, even as the 3rd wide receiver in that lineup. So it's not like he's coming up from scratch here. He's being elevated in both the depth chart and should have more opportunities available at his disposal this year. Wouldn't mind Rashad Bateman. That would be my 3rd Raven, though, so not exactly. That's when it becomes a little bit excessive, and the Ravens are not an offense like the Packers where they're incredibly balanced. The Ravens are the most running-heavy team in the league, just about. They have the highest total yardage output in the running game, they're not quite as percentage dependent as the Browns per se, although they are dang close. I think it's a 1 or 2% difference, but they're not going to be throwing the ball all over the yard. So although I like Bateman a lot, I think he can take over this offense, be the number one there. Oh man, his recovery is 6 to 8 weeks. Geez, so he might not be ready for the beginning of the season. A core muscle injury or surgery is something that Alan Lazard had for my Packers last season. He missed a healthy amount of time, so we might be looking at October now rather than a September return. But there goes my man. I might be looking at Nelson Aguilar now, as weird as that sounds. Give me a field-stretching upside play at that wide receiver spot. I won't be picking Marquise Brown. Let's see how he's got any news on his... Yeah, so he's just about healthy now. Trevor Lawrence wouldn't be a bad pick as a reserve quarterback option. It might just be Gus Bus Edwards time. He would be my third Raven, but he gives me something I have not addressed yet, and that's the fact that he has some standalone value and some very good handcuff value here. For this Ravens offense, he has gotten the job done before, an undrafted player, but as a rookie, I had him in fantasy. He came in and basically helped me win my league. I'll make that pick here real quick so we can finish up this draft. But Gus Edwards is a player who's utilized in the goal line. He's not the flashiest player in the world. He's not the most explosive guy, but he just kind of does his job. And if JK goes down, I feel very comfortable just easily inserting him into that lineup. The Ravens aren't afraid to give him the ball. He's had 20-plus touch games before. He just understands his role and does it to a very good level. He will not sniff my starting lineup at all if Dobbins is healthy, because look at the other running backs I addressed that are actual starters on their team, but it is a mild committee system, so he will see some involvement and opportunity for this team. Now the pressing need here, I need to address defense and kicker. I've got 4 picks to do so. But I also need 2 more receivers. I don't think Aguilar will be there for me, but I also don't think that I'm going to see Rashad Bateman here. Jacoby Myers is actually my favorite name in this passing offense right now, so I'm actually going to look for him. Brian Edwards is another sneaky wideout I would be keeping my eye on for here late. Tyrell Williams penciled in as his team's number 1 receiver right now. That's something to keep your eye on. I like Amon-Ra St. Brown. Did he go already? I feel like he... Nope, he's right there. A player to keep my eyes open for, though. A lot of interesting situations that can play out here. I could also start a defensive run. I could try to do that maybe in the 15th round. I would rather wait in the 14th. Maybe teams start picking defenses before then. It kind of varies in your league. Whenever the first guy takes it, then you start to kind of see a spiral effect where other guys just start taking it like crazy. But I would not hate starting a defensive run in the 15th round. I don't want to be on the back end of the run because then I think the value isn't too good there. But if I can start it, get my number 1 defense, have everyone else after me fall down in order, take their defenses off the board, and then have some value at other positions fall down to me, that could help me get the receivers I'm looking for here late. So in terms of fantasy kickers, this is something we have not drafted here on the channel yet this entire offseason. I have not included kickers in episodes. Tucker's one of the most accurate kickers in the league. Obviously, that makes him very formidable in fantasy. Harrison Butker, Chiefs score a lot of points. That one's easy. Suck up, same deal there. Young Hoku, Falcons stall out in the red zone. He kicks a lot of field goals. So there goes Washington. So we'll see here. I might actually get snubbed if the defensive run continues longer than I expect it to. It looks like no one else cared. So he got my top defense off the board, the Washington football team, but the rest of the league does not, at least the next 2 picks, did not seem to be too concerned about answering that call there. I would love to get the Rams. Don't get me wrong. They've got the front and the secondary. Dang, Jacoby Myers had to go there. That's unfortunate. All right, are we going to see the defenses start rolling off the board here? That sucks. Jacoby Myers looks dang good in preseason right now. Do I like Nelson Aguilar enough to pick him right here? I think in terms of stretching the field, he's got the upside I'm looking for. I'm going to roll the dice. I'm going to take Nelson Aguilar and hope that... Ooh, there we go. I almost missed out there. The clock's down to 30 seconds now. I'm going to hope that I can get myself the Rams with my next pick. It might not happen because there's 6 draft choices, 3 teams picking twice. They might just choose that, hey, I don't want to miss out on my defense here. They go take advantage of that. That's an interesting pick there, Trey Lance. I could also pick a second quarterback. That's something I might do at the very end of things here. Something that's interesting today, I'd love to hear your guys' opinion on this before we head out of here. I don't necessarily think through this draft, sometimes there's a clear-cut winner, best overall team. I think these teams are pretty dang evenly matched. I wouldn't say that one team is significantly better than the rest. I do really like this team here at the 1-1. That's probably my favorite group so far, just glancing at them, but the rest of these teams, I think that there's a lot of teams that can be right in the fray, right in the mix of things. This team at the 1-7 also did a really good job putting pieces together. That wide receiver core is hurting a little bit, but that running back room is very strong. Yeah, I think that I feel very comfortable about my team. I'd say it's a top 3 roster immediately exiting the draft right now. I'd say I like the 1-1 team. That 1-7 team is pretty nice as well. It's debatable. The 1-10 team is also a very solid squad. I'd say I'm a top 3 or 4 roster immediately exiting the draft. I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts on that. It looks like I will get my Rams here, so I did get my wish. Another positional advantage, per se, in terms of me getting the group I wanted there. And we'll see if the defensive run starts now. 7 teams still need to take a defense, and here it goes. This is perfect. Start the defensive run, and the value, I mean, they're going to come back and have more picks, but value will still fall, and I just got a top 2 defense in my opinion. I've got the Washington football team 1, the Rams at 2 right now, and then Tampa Bay is my defense number 3. Justin Fields, I wanted him to be my reserve quarterback behind Lamar, but I've got to take a kicker here still. I could take my man Kirk Cousins as a nice insurance policy. Dang. Oh, man. I could also... This is interesting. Ramondre Stevenson would be an awesome flyer pick late. And that type of upside is the type of stuff that wins you leagues. If Ramondre Stevenson hits like I think he could, that might just be the steal of the draft in these late rounds here. We'll see. People definitely know about him now. He was one of the best kept secrets in my drafts. I was picking him like literally every time. And then I've been seeing him taken more and more with the subscriber mocks. But now that he's burst out onto the scene in the preseason, everyone knows who he is now that watches Pat's preseason games, which I'm not saying is a large majority of people, but the NFL on Instagram, if you follow them, they post all those runs he's got on there, and he's a pretty dang exciting player. So if I could get him in the 16th and just come back and take whatever kicker, completely fine by me. I'm going to guess a lot of teams are going to wait till the last round to take their kickers. Outside of the top 3 or 4, I think maybe might go in this round. You see Justin Tucker be the second off the board there. Other than that, I think I might relatively have my choice of the kicker crop at that 17-4 draft spot. So something I would feel pretty good about. And if I could lock up Ramondre Stevenson, that would give me the opportunity. There's going to be so many wide receivers available on the market. Bryan Edwards is another player I wanted to pick at that position. So it makes me all the more willing to kind of just disregard that spot. If Ramondre gets drafted, I might take Amon-Ra St. Brown. But other than that, I like the value and the opportunity he gives me better than the rest of those players. So I would feel very, very good about getting that pick there. Even over a David Johnson. I'm sorry. The Texans are going to be so bad this year. They're going to have little to no run game. Even if he's the third down back, I just don't love the situation there. I don't think they're going to score very often. He's an old, washed running back. It's so bad. David Johnson is... I mean, they literally asked him the other day. They're like, how do you see your usage? And he's like, I don't know. It's tough. Like, is there anything that you could say that would make us have less confidence in your fantasy value, David? I don't know, it's tough. Come on, man. We at least like to hear something promising from you. So, boom, Ramondre Stevenson. Seems kind of weird taking him over David Johnson, who used to be a top 2 pick in fantasy leagues, but at this point, it's about the upside. Ramondre Stevenson's ceiling of what he can, the floor is certainly lower for Ramondre, but what he could be is, I think, much more utilized. Look at how many freaking veteran running backs are on this team. David Johnson, Phillip Lindsay, Mark Ingram, Rex Burkhead, and then Dontrell Hilliard, I think he's been in the league a couple years, maybe 3. 3. Hit the nail right on the head there. And then you look at Buddy Howell, might be 2 years, 3 years as well. Okay. So I like what I'm getting from Ramondre Stevenson a lot more. Come in and just fall in the end zone for me, buddy, and it'll be a great season for us. So then I'll lock up that kicker, get a top 5 or 6 kicker option, and we'll be right on our merry way here. I really like how the back end of this board played out today. I think that with all things considered, it went very, very well in the last 5-6 rounds or so. I was able to soak up a lot of value I was looking for. And I feel really good about how deep that running back room got. This is one of the times where I've addressed that position a lot less. And okay, I don't think that the team at the 1-1 has a kicker, so that's interesting. One pick, and then my final selection here. Give me Koo, baby. Koo is the man. Koo is a single-handed carrier of fantasy teams last year if you've got kickers in your league. Rodrigo Blankenship is pretty legendary as well. I would love to take Will Lutz because I think that he can be this year's Falcons with them stalling out in the red zone, but he's hurt, so... Oh, yes! Koo falls to SFS at the 17-4. I would have loved Rodrigo Blankenship just as equally, but... Kickers, my strategy for picking kickers is pick an offense that's good enough to move the ball, but not good enough to finish off drives. The Falcons' run game was so bad last year that I picked Koo in all my leagues. I was like, this seems like it'll work. And then the dude was like, the kicker 2? I think Daniel Carlson was kicker 1. He wasn't even on my radar, but it just kind of shows you how inconsistently it is to project kicker production. A lot of it's luck. Some of it can be boiled down to situation. Harrison Butker isn't always going to be the best kicker just because the Chiefs score a lot, because those touchdowns they're scoring are just giving you 1 point for extra points, whereas if they stall out in the red zone, don't have the run game to punch the ball in, they'll be kicking 3 points for you at a clip, but it is what it is. So that was a long draft, a long Sunday episode, but that's how the team played out here. Again, I think that this team fared pretty well in the grand scheme of things. Again, I do wish I had taken Kyler Murray. It's my one biggest regret from today's episode. I'm not afraid to share that, as I should have taken Kyler Murray at that 4-7 pick and then taken Robert Woods at the 5-4. But hey, making the Kyler Murray pick might have made other draft positions do other things as well that would have changed the complete span of that 8-pick period. So other than that, I love how the board played out today. Again, I don't think there's a clear-cut favorite in today's draft, but I think that a lot of teams put together really solid groups. I am riding with one quarterback, so I'm going to have to drop somebody at some point on Lamar Jackson's bye week, which I believe the Ravens are week 8. Yes, week 8. So I've got some time to figure out that situation. There's plenty of names out there as well. So as we get closer to the regular season, maybe we find out some news about players. I could maybe cut a player or two, make a trade package deal, a 2-for-1 type offer where I make an upgrade at a spot. We'll see what happens, but I think that this league has a very good shot as long as my team stays healthy. Again, shout out to the teams at the 110, the 1-1. I really like those squads. Even the 1-8 with Diggs, Montgomery, Gibson, Lamb in the first 4 rounds. It's a very, very solid start to things. What other teams do I like here? There's a lot of quality picks going on. Even if I don't love your draft strategy in the first 3 or 4 rounds, a lot of these other teams are making very good picks in the middle to late rounds, which makes me feel very, very impressed with how the board fell as a whole today. And I think that the reaches that were being made were very dang good reaches. ADP doesn't always reflect who the best player is available on the board. And that was certainly reflected with Brandon Ayuk being taken significantly earlier than he was supposed to be. Darren Waller went significantly earlier than he should have. according to average draft position, which is, again, obviously very subjective and not always the most accurate form of measurement for fantasy. But big shout out to everyone in the league today. I appreciate you guys letting me jump in the league with you and inviting me here. So with that being said, I'll see you guys in tomorrow's video. Remember, like today's video before you head out, subscribe if you're new around here, and drop those fantasy questions down in the comment section below, and I'll get back to you guys as soon as possible. Peace out.